Welcome to another Women in Power Active. I'm your host, Jacqueline Gross. I'm also the Jack of Trail Chats with Mindy and Jack. My co-host is Erica Mann, and today we are talking with Kara. Start out with how Thanksgiving, we just got through Thanksgiving. How was
Really stayed home in Michigan. Is where I'm at. It was recommended that you only gather with one other family, and you're kind of like committed to being a pod.
Yeah.
But I work in the schools, and my husband works outside of the home right now, and my son goes to daycare. So we just thought it'd be safer if we stayed home. So I made a turkey breast for the first time.
Yeah.
And made a couple of sides, and it was quite interesting, but we had fun with it. And it's nice having a young child because everything is like really exciting no matter what. So we had a good time.
No, that's awesome. And I thought, what was that? The souffle pie that you made? What was the pie that you made
Oh,
without a hand?
pumpkin chiffon,
Oh,
which you
chiffon.
put
Okay.
in a hand mixer if you want to beat eggs until they are firm. So it was a team effort.
Yeah. Yeah, pass the bowl.
Yeah.
Everyone's turn. With all the other stresses going on, like just even if it was like the normal life, how do you manage that and incorporate that in your self-care practices? So not just COVID, but like your work, having a small child, and daycare and stuff. How do you do that?
Oh my gosh, it's such a I don't think honestly like COVID was like one more thing. I don't know, there's lots of stresses that go along with COVID, but that's a whole nother story. But I think it's just like you rolling with the punches, and you have to schedule it in for yourself, and just really be aware of how you're feeling. I'm a social worker, so licensed therapist. So basically just like, trying to walk my walk instead of just talk the talk, and pay attention to my body and my mind, and schedule things accordingly, and learn when to say no, which took me a really long time.
Kara was actually on Women in Power Active, like one of our first ones, pre-kid. I was just thinking, like, you trained for Boston this year, and of course it was postponed and then canceled, and then you decided to race like virtually. How did you manage the training with that?
Before, well, when I used to train, you forget, like, I think about it now, and I'm like, gosh, I had a lot of time on my hands, and I didn't even realize it. Like, once you have a child,
Yeah.
and just to kind of set the stage, not only do I just have one child, so I kind of feel like it's easier in that regard. But my husband, pre-COVID, he owns a timing business. He times races. His big season is in the winter, and I like to train for a spring marathon. And so he could be gone for like 10 days at a time. So I had to learn to like running on a treadmill, so I could go to the gym and have childcare and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
And get my runs in however I could. And then when COVID happened, like all of a sudden he was home, which was weird. And I kind of was like, had to like get rid of that like guilty, like, oh, I'm going to leave home and go for a run feeling, which was new for me, but a lot of moms feel that, I guess.
Yeah.
So, yeah, finding the balance for training for this marathon was really interesting and kind of tough, because it was like staying motivated, making time for it. I was working from home for quite a while, so that was tough. But it was really just like reminding myself why I was doing it, which I wasn't really sure why. So it was like, why am I doing this? But I had kind of given up on Boston, because I did not qualify this time around. I missed it by like, I hit a qualifying time,
Yeah.
but with the rolling registration, I was like one of the first people to not be able to register. They said my time was like, it was literally like 1 or 2 seconds too slow. So they opened up the door for all these people to register, and then like based on your time, you either get in or you don't. And I didn't get in. And then Sam Adams, I got an email from Boston Athletic Association saying that one of their title sponsors was going to sponsor some people who were like really close. So that's how I got in. But it was pretty late in the game that they picked us, and
Yeah.
my mileage was really low and I had been injured all last year, and so I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to do it. And then like I was relieved when COVID happened, because I'm like, oh sweet, the race is canceled. It was like kind of sad but kind of not. And that's when I decided, like, okay, you have extra time, like if you have the opportunity to go, you should go. So that's when I kind of like ramped up my training again. But it was, yeah, it was really different. I didn't have that like leaving your spouse to go for a run feeling quite often before COVID, because like usually I would do it right after work, and then on the weekends he wasn't here anyways, so I would just have to figure it out.
You also PR'd, right?
Yeah.
How did you like do that? Like, what do you credit that to? So with all this going on.
Maybe not being nervous. I don't know. It was pretty cool. Like actually there was a handful of local people that were going to run the race, and we ran the Marquette Marathon race course, which is where I PR'd previously. And so we kind of like, got together at the parking lot in the morning and took a picture, and we were all not 6 feet apart, and I was kind of nervous because like I said, I'm pretty strict with the social distancing and trying to stay healthy. But I knew out of the people that were doing it, I was like, well, I'm going to be the fastest, so I'm never going to like have to pass people or like hang out with them at the start. But my husband ran with me, and then a friend of mine carried our aid on her bike, because this gentleman that organized it, he even had like aid stations set up, but I just had a couple extra bottles, and she would hand me a bottle every mile or so, and I would just take a little sip. And yeah, it was crazy. So I think, it was just like I was going out for a run. And then when we got close to the half, I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm still feeling good. And I just kept telling myself that, like, you're still feeling good. And it was pretty exciting. Like coming into Marquette, you still have a long ways to go, but it was exciting coming into Marquette and seeing like how fast I was going. It was fun.
You had injuries too before that, right? Like you were coming off.
Yeah, I was injured. Like I basically merely ran last summer. Basically since the Boston 2019, I didn't run very much. I mean, off and on attempted to. And then I had like this weird thing happen where I got a Tdap shot. Like I was due for my 10-year Tdap shot. And 2 days later, and this was like August 30th, maybe, or around there. So really like 10 days before the race or whatever. And the next 2 mornings later, I like woke up and I couldn't walk, and it felt like my leg was broken. It was so bad. And I thought, do I have a stress fracture? But it was like my hamstring area. It was really bizarre. And it like, I couldn't walk, I couldn't run for a long time. And then, so when I started the race, I was like, well, I'm just gonna go and see what happens. So I wasn't even planning on necessarily finishing, but I felt good the whole time. And yeah, it's pretty awesome.